Julianne and Debbie had been sticking together for the past few hours. They were spooked ever since they saw Connor skillfully and efficiently kill Catherine, so they were determined to team up until they felt comfortable. Julianne wasn't all that thrilled with having to team up with Debbie, but considering she fixed her messed up shoulder, she knew she was trustworthy. The two of them were wandering the woods when they saw a glow of orange in the distance. They looked at each other like a deer in headlights. They didn't know whether to investigate, maybe get some kills, or run far, far away. What are you thinking? Debbie asked. Let's investigate. No harm in looking into it. If we feel threatened, then we can retreat, Julianne responded confidently. She was anything but. They stood behind bushes and trees as they approached the fire. As they got closer, Julianne heard voices that sounded familiar to her. Behind her bush, she peeked out to confirm her suspicions and quickly went fully back behind the bush. She turned to Debbie and mouthed the name Lucy. Debbie nodded in affirmation. Debbie then took her turn to investigate the second voice. She poked her head beyond her tree and mouthed the name Jess back at her ally. Julianne stood there, wondering if the team of Lucy and Jess posed a threat. She was aware the two of them didn't like each other very much outside the arena, but this was the inside of the arena, and as everyone else knew, inside the arena, all bets were off. Julianne kept watching as Lucy and Jess were eating what looked like food brought by the unknown sponsors. She was hungry, and there seemed to be a lot of food over there that would be going to waste. She stood up from behind the bush and slowly walked toward the fire, raising her hands up to make it known she wasn't a threat. Hey guys, she said, never putting her hands down. She was surprised her unannounced presence didn't scare the two girls more. Oh, hey, look, Julianne, was all Lucy said. Jess said a little more. Oh my God, you're alive! Jess screamed as she ran over to hug Julianne, shedding a tear or two. Hello, hello, how's it going? Debbie said as she casually walked up to the fire. Jess and Lucy quickly defended themselves. Whoa, 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 she's good. She's with me, Julianne pleaded. She saved my life. She's good. She's an ally. Jess and Lucy looked at each other, and after some staring and nonverbal communication, they waved her over to the fire. We were just really hungry, and we saw you had some extra food. We were hoping we could team up with you for the time being, Julianne asked. She tried very hard not to beg. She didn't want to seem like she and Debbie were desperate, even though they were. Yeah, I guess you could stick around for the time being, Jess answered. Yeah, but we can't have anyone else showing up. 5 people is already a lot, Lucy said. Wait, Debbie thought aloud. Who's the fifth? Hey, ladies, I got some more wood. Fire should be strong for a long time tonight. Julianne and Debbie dropped their food in horror. They thought this was the end. What are you two freaking out about? He's with us, Lucy laughed. Did you see what he did to Catherine? Julianne yelled. It's killed or be killed, Julianne, Jess reasoned. He's already got 3 under his belt. He's a really good asset for us to stay alive. He was hunting Debbie just a few hours ago, Julianne cried. Look, I'm sorry. I apologize. It's the nature of the games. Debbie didn't seem to mind that Connor, who was hunting her down earlier and referenced how she would be an easier kill later, was now supposedly their ally. Nah, you're good, Connor. You're good. Julianne was way more skeptical. She felt as if Connor has ulterior motives with this alliance. Well, beyond the killing everyone anyways. I assure you, I am no threat. We're working together to stay alive until the restocking in a few days. We'd welcome you to the alliance if you're willing and trustworthy, Connor assured. Poorly, but still. Trustworthy? You think we're the ones you can't trust? I saw you kill Catherine like you were hunting deer. It was clear that Julianne was never going to trust Connor. Look, the plan has to have the 3 of us sleep in shifts. Having 2 more people allows for more shifts and more rest. If you don't trust me, you can have the first shift. You're absolutely right. I don't trust you. But we trust him, Julianne. And I know you trust me. Jess looked Julianne in the eyes. Julianne looked around and saw Lucy and Debbie nod in agreement. All right, fine, Julianne scoffed. But no, I do not endorse this alliance. And we don't endorse our participation in these games, but we didn't get that choice, did we? Lucy said, drenching her statement in sarcasm. Julianne figured Lucy was right. None of them chose to be in this position, but they'll have to make do with what they got. The four of them wrapped up for the night and went to sleep. Julianne sat by the tree she and Debbie hid behind and closed her eyes. She tried to hold back tears of fear and frustration. She wanted to get out of this place, but she knew that she'd have to do things she didn't like to get out of here alive. Tegan stared at the fire. This was now night two. He was staying in the same place to sleep. Alec had built a pretty nice place, all things considered. It was nice and secluded, which made him the benefactor. Not many people were going to search up here, never mind find him. Well, Trista found him. They both had finished eating and were sitting by the fire. That was the thing about these games. Everyone knew each other. Heck, they were friends with each other. Killing didn't happen as easy as it did in Pan Am. Sure, there have been some moments where friends went after each other, like Bruce going after Marlin and Dory after smelling blood and finding Nemo, but for the most part, they got along. Some people were determined to get out of here alive, others didn't want to hurt a soul. There were a select few that questioned how and why they were in this situation in the first place, and more than anything, were determined to stop that from happening. Tegan was one of those people. He had killed Seb, but he never knew why. He felt like it was just natural. He knew before he was thrown into this place he wouldn't hurt anybody, much less friends. Tegan wanted hugs, not harm. What happened to everyone when they were put in here? Tegan felt like if he had found the right person, they can figure out how to solve this conundrum. Trista had looked at Tegan as he stared off into space, thinking about how maybe there was a way out of this. You okay, sis? What? Tegan said, coming back from his daze. What you thinking about there, bud? There's got to be a reason we're here, right? We couldn't have purely been thrown in here for BK's entertainment. Trista laughed. Why are you even thinking about that right now? Thinking about staying alive. Tegan never looked away from the flames. How can I? At least one of us is not getting out of here alive. I have to kill people so I can keep breathing. I've already killed Seb. 8 people are dead. Who else has to die before we work together to figure this out? Probably 15 more, Tegan, Trista comforted. There's not a whole lot you can do. Don't beat yourself up over this, please. Tegan's gaze, still never leaving the blaze, saw the hot blue-hued flame near the bottom of the fire. How simple a fire is, he thought. All I have to worry about is burning. My situation is not that easy. What happened before we were thrown in here? Trista looked back, extremely puzzled. What does that mean? I mean, what happened to us, with BK, before we all got forced down here? Something isn't adding up. Tegan, relax. I think you're just, he stopped her mid-sentence. No, you stop. I am not overthinking this. There's got to be something here we can figure out. Last thing I remember doing with BK is we discussed curtain and distraction costumes that needed to be ordered. Next thing I know, I'm in a battle arena fighting for my life. He turned and looked at her straight in the eye. You can't tell me something doesn't smell fishy here. Trista shrugged her shoulders. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it smelled great in here. I was working with RJ about getting PAB involved with something, but I don't remember what. Was it the games? God, no, there's no fucking way it could be the games. I didn't know they existed until I was in them. Exactly. What happened between then and now that got us these damn games? How much detail are we missing? How many pieces of this puzzle do we still have to find? Jason never responded. She didn't have one. Tegan knew there wasn't enough information to have all the answers, but he knew he was onto something. And a light bulb went off. He quickly gathered his supplies, which included his crossbow, and left the campsite. Hey, where are you going? Tracer questioned. We're going to find someone who will listen. Tracer scoffed. Rude. You think I won't listen? Tegan stopped and turned around. You'll listen, but will you believe? He stared at Trista for a few more seconds before he began his quest into finding an ally. But this wasn't an in-game ally he was searching for. And that meant finding someone that would let him live long enough to believe him. Tegan didn't like his choices, but he knew they'd listen, for better or for worse. BK hadn't gone to sleep yet. He was interested in the alliance dynamics. There really wasn't one single strong alliance that stuck together the entire time. And the latest interaction with Tegan and Shrestha got him thinking. You look worried, sir, Ricardo said. Tegan seems to be on to something I can't afford for him to be on about. And that is, BK didn't respond right away. He turned around from the action inside the arena for the first time since they began. He sighed. He thought this would be easy. Turns out, more work needed to be done. That he's in an inescapable position. And I can't afford for him to know that. He looked around at his guard. He knew they knew what he was talking about. He turned to Dale. Any chance we can get that arena event up and running by tomorrow? Heather had been walking for quite a while now. She wasn't that shook about how Frank had died because she didn't think she killed him. He killed himself. Now she was the reason he killed himself, but still. Heather had been along the shore of the creek for some time, stopping to wash, rinse, and refill the two canteens. She was worried that she forgot which canteen was the poison one, but all she had to do was smell inside the canteen to remember. She noticed in the process of the washing that Frank had scratched his name on the side of the canteen. Heather thought that was a stupid idea. That would announce his presence wherever he went. If someone was hunting and found an abandoned canteen, they would be wary of whoever was the owner, not knowing who it was. But if they saw that it was Frank, maybe someone would think they're a predator rather than prey. Heather continued to ponder why Frank would write his name. What was the benefit? Would he not take someone else's canteen because it wasn't his? These games didn't allow survivors to be silly like that. What really caught Heather off guard was how did Frank not notice that he had poisoned Heather's drink, the canteen with no name on it? And how did Frank not notice that he wasn't drinking from his own canteen? Now Heather was convinced she didn't kill Frank. His own stupidity did. Heather found a nice flat rock to sit down on to take her feet a break. She had been walking for a while now, but she didn't feel comfortable taking a break in this environment. Every second she sat down to rest is another second of vulnerability. Every time she let her guard down, her chances of death went up. Walking on her feet another minute, though, might be the death of her anyway. So for the first time in this game, she felt like she was the prey. She looked down at the creek and saw her reflection. She was dirty, bloody, and all scuffed up. But more importantly, she looked tired. The adrenaline of staying alive always went down when there wasn't any action. She was fighting to stay awake. She put her head in her hands in exhaustion. She stared back into her eyes in her reflection. Then she saw something out of the corner of her eye. She rubbed her eyes to make sure it wasn't tired hallucinations. She looked again and saw the same thing. She quickly turned around and noticed the smoke she saw from the reflection. Heather gathered up the energy and left to go investigate. Kristen had gathered up all the supplies she needed to go hunting. She didn't know whether she'd ever be back, but she felt like if she needed to come back, the supplies she had were well hidden. She wondered what she was about to hunt. She was going to look for food, but was secretly hoping she could get a sneaky ambush kill. She took a deep breath, took her backpack of supplies, and left her pounds and pounds of extra supplies hidden, and went on her hunt. Heather watched Kristen leave. She chuckled to herself. Frank had died because of his stupidity, and now Heather was going to make Kristen pay for her own stupidity. She watched Kristen leave the campsite and passed her line of sight before Heather searched the pile of supplies. Heather quickly looked through the pile and laughed some more. Kristen thought she had the camp hidden, but didn't realize she didn't completely put out the fire, as it had grown big enough for Heather to notice the smoke. Heather now had a full backpack, which didn't help her exhaustion, but she knew some of the things she now gathered would help her restore some energy. But sleep was going to be the biggest re-energizer. She found a cave when she was walking the creek and decided that's where she would spend the night. She gathered her full backpack, turned to the fire, and thought, could she be that evil, that sinister? There were a few small logs and sticks that were still on the fire that Kristen didn't completely put out. She was going to regret it because Heather moved those sticks onto the mountain of supplies that were now engulfed in flames. Heather walked away with an evil smirk on her face. She didn't know what had gotten into her lately, doing all these terrible things. She kind of liked it. For the second straight night, there were some wicked storms inside the arena. Jacob and Giggs had run into each other looking for some sort of shelter to cover themselves from the rain. They both considered making a move at each other, but not only did they lack the energy, they both knew two people would make it easier to find shelter, and in a worst case scenario, build one. Giggs had run out of fish to eat after Lucy bolted with all the fishing gear, so keeping warm was starting to become an issue. His body was burning the calories of the fish to stay warm, and outside of the fact that his stomach was growling, he was starting to realize how much trouble he was in. Jacob, on the other hand, hadn't eaten in a while, nor had he found shelter. He was nibbling on some berries and some flowers he found earlier, but after that, his stomach was beyond empty. He realized he was in deep trouble a long time ago and determined to team up with Giggs to make sure he wasn't going to die of starvation and or hypothermia. The two of them found a tree to hide under for the moment to gather their thoughts. They were still getting rained on, but not nearly as hard. The tree was rather large and had some thick branches and big leaves to reduce the amount of water landing on them. The two of them were breathing heavily as they were running to find some cover. We need to find some real shelter, Giggs sighed. Yeah, no fucking shit, Sherlock, Jacob scoffed. He wasn't in the mood for Captain Obvious statements. I'm ready to start running again, Giggs responded, but by how hard he was breathing, Jacob knew Giggs clearly wasn't ready. He didn't care. He didn't care about Giggs at all, in fact. There was no alliance. He was just following him to see if there was warmth and food to find. If Giggs couldn't keep up, that was his problem, not Jacob's. Jacob kept scouting the arena, squinting his eyes, not because it was bright, it was nighttime after all, but to shield his eyes from being bombarded by raindrops. He scoured the landscape and saw their next target. That tree over there, maybe 500 yards out. Think you can make it there? Jacob asked. Yeah, I think so. Good, because you don't have a choice, Jacob snarled as he began running the distance, with Giggs slowly following. The two of them had wandered around obstacles and debris to get to their last few checkpoints, but this time there was nothing but open grass between them and their destination. Normally, Jacob would be more cautious running in an open field, expecting there to be numerous traps placed about, but right now, shelter was the number one priority. Jacob made it about 300 yards when he suddenly stopped. Giggs, roughly 100 yards behind, yelled, "Why did you stop?" Jacob didn't acknowledge. He was sniffing something in the air. No, but seriously, why did you? Shut the fuck up, Giggs. I might be onto something. Jacob just kept sniffing. Giggs was about to ask, then decided against it. Do you smell that? Giggs took a sniff himself. Smells like rain and water. No, beyond that smell, dumbass. Giggs kept sniffing, but still failed to identify a smell beyond H2O. No, why? What do you smell? Fire, Jacob whispered, and the light bulb went off. Fire! Giggs, this way! Jacob said as he ran towards the smell. Giggs just took a deep breath inside. He shook his head. We are so gonna die, he mumbled to himself as he slowly began accelerating towards Jacob. Hey, seriously, thanks again for letting me stay another night here. I didn't know the storms would be this ugly. Yeah, well, neither did I. It's also a lot easier maintaining a fire during a downpour with two people. Elby laughed as he and Ian sat around the fire of their inside shelter. The two of them were cozy in their treehouse that was on the ground. They were away from the cold and right next to the warm. Elby admitted he was a little warm, and the sweat rolling down his legs proved it, but he knew he couldn't complain. In this situation, he was glad he was warm. He tried to take a drink from his canteen, but there was nothing left. There was nothing left. Ah, shit. Because I have to go back into the rain. You want me to refill yours? He asked. Ian handed him a canteen and thanked him. Elby got one of his jackets, put it on, and ran towards the nearest creek to refill the canteens. Just as Elby left, Jacob and Giggs had rolled up to the treehouse. Jacob almost cried when he saw it, but considering how hard it was raining, he decided that was enough water for the night. He and Giggs ran up to the door. Ian was just sitting and staring into the fire when he heard the two of them approach. He didn't have any time to gather himself before Jacob and Giggs barged in and sat close to the fire. Fucking finally, Jacob shivered. Some warmth. Ian stood there, not knowing how to react. He didn't have a weapon to kill the intruders, but neither of them seemed to care that he was in the house to begin with. Ian just shrugged his shoulders and went back to staring into the fire. Elby had run through the rain back near the treehouse with 2 canteens full of water. He was unsure whether they were canteens full of fresh water from the creek or chemicalized water from the storms within the arena. But water was water. He made sure he had everything before he saw something shiny hanging in a tree. LB didn't want to stay out of the rain much longer, but it could have been something sent from sponsors, so he felt inclined to go check. As he got closer to the tree, he saw it was a machete. LB immediately took it without any hesitation. There was a note that somehow was dry. It read, "Use this to cut trees, bushes, and food. Of course, we can't stop you from using this for self-defense." LB couldn't help but chuckle. Self-defense would more than likely be the only reason he would use this machete. He approached the treehouse with full canteens and now a machete. He didn't know how he was going to hide it from Ian, but he figured it out. As he got closer to the shelter, he heard Ian laugh. Weird, LB thought. Only Alec would laugh when talking to himself. But as he got closer, he started hearing more voices. Voices he recognized, and voices that were not Ian's. LB began to panic. Was this a setup the whole time? Is this an ambush? Am I going to die? LB had had enough of that way of thinking. He tossed the canteens to the side and pulled out his new machete and stormed, pun slightly intended, to the shelter. So were you about to die? Ian asked Jacob. We were gonna be pretty close, not gonna lie. Jacob replied. Damn, maybe I shouldn't have let you in. Haha. Anyways, so as I was saying, back the fuck up, bitches. LB screamed. Whoa, let's chill the fuck out here, small Bob. Jacob tried to calm him. We just needed shelter from the. No. I don't care what. All of you get the hell out of here before I kill you. Ian jumped in. No, seriously, LB, it's not what you think. 10, 9, 8. LB began counting down. Jacob, I don't think he's buffing, Gig said. No shit, come on, let's get out of here. Jacob yelled as both the men ran back out into the cold outside. That includes you, Ian. What did I do? You think I'm that stupid? Do you really believe you would get away with this? What are you even talking about? I didn't do anything. You tried to get me on your side so you and your bros over here could get an unsuspecting kill of me. Well, I am not going to let that happen. LB, that's not at all. 5, 4. LB began counting down again, staring right into Ian's eyes. Ian wanted LB to be joking, but it was too risky to call his bluff. LB eventually pulled on his shirt and threw him out of the shelter and into the wet and muddy ground. The rain came down even harder now. And let me be very clear, LB shouted. If I see you again, I am going for your head. He threatened as he slammed the treehouse door. Ian continued to sit in the torrential rain for a few minutes before he left to find his own shelter. Jacob had lost gigs through all the commotion. The rain had stopped, but that didn't mean it was any less cold outside. He tried to build fires, but with everything soaked from the rainstorm. He tried to build fires, but everything was soaked from the rainstorm. He found a nice quiet place to lay down. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm gonna die like a little bitch. Jacob struggled to get out through all the shivers. When he entered the arena, he thought if he was going to die, it would be in some epic battle. Now, here he was, laying on the ground, coughing, freezing, suffering. He knew the sun would rise soon, so he just had to make it until then. He decided he would close his eyes to get a little bit of sleep. Sir, BK walked up to the monitor. Damn, that's a shame. He probably thought he was closing his eyes for a few hours of sleep. Oh well, that's the nature of the Hunger Games. BK sipped on his coffee, but not drinking a whole lot. Dang, I'm out of coffee. I'm gonna take my coffee break, people. Update me if anything happens, and so I'm gonna make sure we have the mug and cannon shot ready for Jacob later tonight.